Hey, church, welcome to today's 5-minute thought. Today, I want to talk to you about a topic that's sometimes difficult to express and sometimes it's even difficult to hear. So often we ask God to change our circumstances. We say, God, please take my sickness away. Please heal me. God, please fix my problem. Please take away my difficulty. What we're really trying to say is, God, please make my life easier. The thing is, the Christian life isn't about ease. In John chapter 16, Jesus is speaking to some of his final words to his disciples before his crucifixion. During this time, Jesus tells his disciples that in the world, they will face tribulation. There are going to be times of difficulty. As Christians, we aren't given a hall pass or a get-out-of-jail-free card in order to keep us away from the hard times or the difficulties that we face. For some of you right now, you're going through a very difficult time. I want to give you a couple passages that might put it into a little different perspective. First, I want to point you to a statement made by Jesus in John chapter 12. Jesus had entered Jerusalem and was feeling the weight of his upcoming crucifixion. In verse 27, he says, "Now is my soul troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour." In the book of Romans, Paul says, not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings. Paul himself had dealt with some type of infirmity over a period of years, and he admits in 2 Corinthians 12, a thorn was given me in the flesh, and 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. I want you to know it's okay to plead with God to deliver you from something. Jesus had times of calling out to God. Paul also recognized the need to call out to God during his suffering. I think that's part of our job as Christians, to lift up our needs and concerns to God because he cares about our needs. The next passage is found in the beginning of James. It's in James chapter 1. It's actually in the first couple of verses. It says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds." Other than a brief introduction in the book of James, James says, "Hi, I'm James." He begins his whole book by saying, count it all joy when you meet trials. Okay, I don't know about you, but the time when I don't feel like being joyful is when I'm going through something difficult. Now, this is where things might start to get a little bit difficult. Yes, we understand there are trials and hardships that are going to come, but we don't always see the big picture of why they're here. I want to admit to you this morning that I've left out some important parts of the first 2 scriptures. Some of you may have noticed that. Let me read the whole context. Jesus crying out to his Father, John chapter 12, verses 27 and 28. He says, "Now is my soul troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour." But listen to what Jesus says. "But for this purpose I have come to this hour. Father, glorify your name." Then a voice came from heaven, "I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again." Jesus' immediate response was one of submission. He said, "Father, glorify your name." If we'd all go into these situations just recognizing that God will get the glory out of the difficulties that we're facing. 2 Corinthians 12, verses 7 through 9, Paul talking about the thorn in his flesh. Here's the full context. "So to keep me from becoming conceited because of the surpassing greatness of the revelation, a thorn was given me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to harass me, to keep me from becoming conceited. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. But God, he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. For my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore," Paul says, "I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." You see, Paul understood that there was a purpose behind the pain. God's purpose is to A, keep us from becoming conceited. It's to humble us. B, it's to cause us to draw near to him, to become close to him. And C, it's to recognize it's God's power at work within us, not our own strength. Finally, I want to give you the full context of the passage in James. It's James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. It says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Trials are testing that produce steadfastness. Steadfastness is a patient endurance. It's perseverance. It's being resolute despite the circumstances you find yourself in. It's being firm in your faith. It's being unwavering. This steadfastness leads towards our lacking nothing. In other words, it's for our good. That's how Paul can say in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. That verse is hard to hear sometimes. In this context, in the context of Romans 8, he was just talking about facing suffering, facing the difficult times that we have to deal with in life. God is working those things for our good and his good. They may not feel good at the time. They might be very difficult. Our Christian walk will not always be easy, but it will lead us to be more like Christ. God is working to refine us. He's purifying us through the fire of the circumstances we find ourselves in. I don't know if God specifically sent the circumstances we find ourselves in or if he allowed them to happen, but I do know that God is going to use them. He'll use them for your benefit, to refine you to completion, and for his honor and glory. I left one other part of a verse out. It was actually in John chapter 16. Jesus, the full context, he's talking to his disciples there before he gets arrested. He said, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Jesus has overcome the world, and he will use the struggles, trials, the suffering that we have to go through, that we're enduring, to lead us towards holiness. He's going to use it to lead us towards completion. And ultimately, he's going to use those things to lead us towards glorification. And that's a reason that we can have joy in the midst of our trials. I'm including a link below to the song Blessings by Laura Story. I think that goes really well with this devotion. I'm also going to post a second song there, Sovereign Over Us by Michael W. Smith. That was my 5-minute thought for the day. Feel free to like, share, comment down below. Hope you have a blessed day. God bless.